What's up guys, it's Nick True here, and today I'm going to be walking you through how to set up a budget in YNAB. Now, Hannah and I have been YNAB users for a couple of years, and it's hands down my absolute favorite budgeting software, and I've used a lot of them. But the problem is that YNAB is pretty darn confusing at first. It's laid out kind of different, and it's governed by a set of slightly different rules than most other budgeting apps out there that you may have tried before. Because of this, a lot of people tend to try YNAB, hit some roadblocks, and then give up. You may even be one of them. This might be your second or third time trying to set it all up. Well, no worries there. Today, I'm going to take you step by step through the essentials of setting up YNAB and getting it to work for your specific needs. Okay, so before I share my screen with you and we start setting up your budget, you need to understand two quick things about YNAB. Number one, unlike any other budgeting tool that you've probably ever used, like EveryDollar or Mint, YNAB does not want you to go ahead and budget the full month out based on what you think your income's going to be. YNAB only wants you to budget with the money that you currently have available to you. I'll show you what this looks like in the software in just a second, but I need you to understand this concept because it's one of the most important concepts that is missed by most people, and yet it's absolutely foundational to the way the software works. So let's be clear. You're only going to budget the money as you receive it. You're not going to budget the money based on what your income is going to be next week or the next. Okay, the second quick note is that YNAB is totally worth it. Some of this is going to be confusing, it's going to be different, but this program is designed and mimics real life spending, and it actually helps you do the things that you want to do. So just bear with me, feel free to ask all the questions you want in the comments below. I will answer every single one of them, and let's just jump in. Alright, so after you sign up for YNAB, the first thing you're going to want to do is just create a new budget and give it a name. Alright, so once you've created your budget, you're going to want to start adding your accounts in. Now, some people will go ahead and start their budget first, but that never made any sense to me. The first thing you need to do is get your account set up. Now, you'll need to decide if you want to link your account automatically to where they pull in your transactions from your bank, or if you want to just go with an unlinked account. Personally, I prefer to do the manual account because I found that when I have to do everything by hand, if you will, I keep a lot better eye on the budget and it forces me to pay attention to what I'm spending. But if you want to have YNAB automatically pull your transactions in, that's fine too. Now, there are two overarching accounts when it comes to YNAB types. You've got budgeting accounts and then you've got tracking accounts. Generally speaking, you should probably just follow the suggestions here. Checking, savings, cash, credit cards, line of credit, these are all accounts that basically hold money that matter to your budget. You're going to use this money to spend and buy things in your everyday life. A tracking account is an asset or a liability. This is basically like your 401k or your mortgage. These are things that don't affect your month-to-month, week-to-week kind of budget, but you may want to have them in YNAB overall just to see your net worth grow. We're not going to worry about these at all for this tutorial. We're only going to concern ourselves with the budgeting type accounts because that's all we care about right now. So let's start adding in all of our accounts. For this example, I'm going to add in a checking account. I'm going to add a savings account that's going to be an emergency fund with $500. I'll add another savings account that's just general savings for $200. And then let's say that I've got a credit card that has a $1,500 balance on it. And for now, we're gonna go ahead and skip this. We'll explain this in a second, but we're gonna skip that for now. And then I've got another credit card with a $500 balance. Now for this example, I normally don't like cash, and if you've seen any of my other videos, you probably know that, but I will add just a little bit of cash because unfortunately I do have it sometimes. Now remember, right now you're only going to add the current balance in each account or how much you owe on the specific credit card. You're not going to be adding any kind of future payments or future income that you expect to receive. And you'll see in a second why YNAB is kind of hard at first and difficult for people because we're only going to budget the money that you currently have available. And unfortunately, you may not have a lot of money currently available, but that's okay. We're going to get there. That's why we're doing this whole thing anyways. So we've got the account set up now. Let's jump into the budget. Okay, we got the account set up. Now let's dig into the budget. This is what the heart of the program is all about. The first thing you're going to notice is that up here we have this nice big $2,715 to be budgeted. Now what's that pulling from? Well, it's pulling from all the money that we set up in our accounts over here. So we had $2,000 in checking, $500 in emergency, $200 in savings, and $15 in cash. You can see that's what we've got up here. Remember how I said that YNAB wants to give every single dollar a job? That's what this is for. In a second, we're going to start adding this money to all of these different specific categories, and we're going to budget every single one of these dollars. Now you'll notice that YNAB has already given you quite a few budgeting categories and what we call category groups that you can start with. So these blue headlines here are category groupings. You can minimize those, and then everything under a specific blue heading is a specific category that falls into that group. The reason we organize it like this is so that after you've got a bunch of transactions in here and you want to go back and look at historical data, you can actually go into the reporting section. You'll be able to see what you've spent and how it's broken down by specific category and category group. The cool thing about the way YNAB does their categories is that everything is totally editable. So I can come in here and I can change this out if I want. I can totally change the category grouping titles as well. I can move category groupings. I can move individual categories around. I can move them from group to group. It's totally functional to fit exactly how you want your budget to be. So the next step for you here is going to be to set up all of the categories and category groupings that you think you're going to need. Now, don't worry about missing some. You're probably not going to think of every single category the first time that you set up YNAB, and that's okay. I don't expect you to remember every single category or category grouping that you want the first time you set up YNAB. But like I said, the beautiful thing is that you can edit everything. And so it's very easy to add in groups later down the road. For this example, I'm going to show you how I like to set up my categories and category groups. First, I like to change these immediate obligations to fixed expenses. But they're basically the same thing. These are just simply the bills that come in every single month on the same day at roughly the same amount. Now, you'll probably have rent or mortgage. I actually live in a camper full time, so I don't have a rent or a mortgage, but I do have an Airstream payment that I have to make every single month. I also have campground fees that I have to make, which also contributes to my housing cost. You may have electric and water. I don't have those because, like I said, I live in a camper, so I'm just gonna take care of that. Other good things for the fixed expenses category are phone and internet. Mine are combined, and so I keep them combined. Gym memberships, if you had any, I don't. Car insurance is really good to have here if you pay that every month. If you pay that like twice a year or once a year, then we'll handle that later on. Now in our family, we also have pet insurance. I won't get into the pros and cons of that in this video, but we do have pet insurance and it's a fixed expense every single month. I don't put groceries in this category. I'll do that elsewhere, but I do have a Netflix payment. So that's what I've got. Essentially, like I said, these are just the fixed expenses that are going to be roughly the same every single month. Now the other thing that I like to do is to actually change the title of these to include the amount and the day that it's due on. So for the Airstream payment, it's $492 a month and it's due on the 14th. Campground fees always vary. I never know when they're due because it kind of depends on, how often we're moving around, but it averages around $750 a month. My phone and internet is $218 on the 21st. Netflix for us is $12 on the 10th. Car insurance is $223 on the 18th, and pet insurance is $56 on the 1st. Next, I like to go ahead and actually order these in terms of due date. That way, when I'm in here and I'm budgeting, I can just easily see when I've got bills that are going to be coming due. All right, our fixed expenses category is done. We're ready to move on. Okay, now the next group I like to add, I call living expenses. Now, you can do it by simply renaming this, or you can come up here and just add a new group. That's what I'll do here. Now in living expenses, I like to add things like groceries, cosmetics, and household items. We actually used to keep all of these three in one category, but we recently broke them out because we wanted to really make sure and track how much are we spending on groceries like food versus things like deodorant and toilet paper, and household items like paper towels and other things like that. Also in living expenses, I have gas, pet expenses, clothing, laundromat, and propane refills. Now obviously, if you have a washer and dryer at home, you won't have laundromat that you got to budget for, but you might have other things that you need to budget for. But that's why it's called personal finance, because all this is personal. You get to make these categories match exactly what work for you. All right, we're ready for the next group. Now, YNAB calls these true expenses. I've never really liked that term. It seems kind of weird to me. I like to call them long-term expenses, but essentially they're the same thing. Basically, this is any kind of expense that doesn't happen on a monthly basis, but is coming. New tires for your car, home maintenance because your water heater is probably going to go out, car insurance if you pay it twice a year or once a year, Christmas shopping because it comes every single year at the exact same time. These are just simply expenses that aren't happening every single month, but you can plan for them. I typically have auto maintenance, home maintenance. I don't have renter's insurance. Medical bills are always good to save for. I handle clothing elsewhere. I handle gifts elsewhere, and I handle giving elsewhere. Now, before I move on, I do want to stop and say something here. When you first start budgeting with YNAB, trying to save money for every little long-term expense that you can possibly think of can be really, really overwhelming, especially if you have a lot of debt. And if that's you, if you're feeling overwhelmed because you've got all these other things on your plate right now, I don't even really want you to think about this category that much. Right now, I would rather you focus on the rest of the budgeting aspect, working on that debt, and then building up an emergency fund so that you can handle some of these unexpected things. So don't get too caught up in this for now. Know that this is the long-term goal, but for now, it's fine to focus on the rest of your budget, focus on killing that debt, increasing your investments, and getting that emergency fund up. And then down the road, you can worry about doing some more in-depth planning for those long-term expenses. Now, the next two budget groups that I use, some people would probably put them in other categories, but I like having them in their own separate categories. The first one is unexpected expenses. Again, a lot of people would probably put this in long-term or somewhere else. I like to have my unexpected expenses alone on their own category. If you watched any of my other videos, you know that I really struggle when it comes to surprise expenses. And so Hannah and I have decided that for us, it makes the most sense to have an emergency fund, do some of this long-term planning, and then still in addition to that, have a monthly unexpected expenses that acts as a buffer for when crazy stuff happens. This just personally helps my sanity, and so that's the way I like to do it. I do it this way because that way when I get into the reporting function, here I'll go over there and show you. When you go into a report, like this is our spending from July of last year, when you go into a report, you can see that we had an unexpected expending of $375.77. And I can click in here and I can see exactly what that was. So that's the way I prefer to do it. Now, the other group that I like to have on its own category is giving. And again, it's all for the reporting aspect of it. So for giving, we typically have two categories. We have kind of our normal giving. This is church tithing, things like that. And then we also have gifts for others. This is going to be birthdays and Mother's Day and Father's Day and things of that nature. All right, we're almost there. Only a couple more categories to go. Next, I'm going to do our fun spending. Now for fun, Hannah and I typically we have a date night / eating out category. That's for us going out together or sometimes with friends. We don't have a gaming or music, but however, we do each individually get spending money. And so we both get the exact same amount every single month, and that kind of gives us some independence in the budget and allows us to both have a little bit of freedom to spend how we see fit. The next grouping is going to be debt repayment. Now, luckily for Hannah and I, we've been able to work real hard and we've been very blessed in our lives that we are currently debt free with the exception of our Airstream. As you saw earlier, I handle the Airstream payment up here under the fixed expenses. And so for our debt payments, we don't have that category. However, if you did have this category, if you did have any debt, the place that you would do it, with the exception of credit cards, is going to be here. So student loans would go here, auto loan would go here, any other type of personal loan would go here. Credit cards, we're going to handle them separately on their own in just a few minutes. But for now, any kind of debt payment is going to go in this category grouping. All right, so next we have a group for savings. YNAB calls it quality of life goals. I just like calling it savings. This is basically anything that I'm saving for that's semi-long term. Currently, we've got a category that is for trips and vacations. We've also got a retirement savings category. Now, if you're investing in your 401k at work, you may do that, let's say pre your paycheck. So you won't have this category necessarily unless you're doing some Roth IRA or something like that. I also include any other smaller goals that I'm saving for. So right now, Hannah and I are saving for kayaks. And we're also saving for a sewing machine for her. And lastly, we're also saving for a down payment. It's kind of a long-term goal. We don't plan on buying a house soon, but we want to start saving for it now so that one day, whenever we decide to buy a house, we're ready. All right, and lastly, I have a separate group for emergency savings. Now again, you might be wondering why I keep this separate, and essentially it goes back to kind of the reporting thing, but ultimately this here is an emotional decision. I personally like to keep my emergency money separate from the rest of my savings. I found that for me, let's say that I have a $4,000 in an emergency savings account. All of a sudden, if that's combined with the rest of my savings, I get feeling pretty good about my savings and I get really tempted to spend some of that money on some of these other things that I'm saving for. So for me, I like to keep emergency money totally separate, and that way I don't even think about it as optional for me to use for some of these other saving goals. Whew. Okay, that was a lot. I know that was a lot. Are you still with me? You feeling good? You feeling like you learning something with the budgeting stuff? Now it's actually the fun stuff. We actually get to dive into making a plan with your money. You hear me talk a lot about how budgeting shouldn't be restrictive. It shouldn't be this thing that you dread and avoid. It should be you making a plan with your money to live the life that you want to live. And that's why I love YNAB so much, because that's what it allows us to easily do. So let's jump back in and start making a plan. So you've got your account set up, you've got all your budgeting categories set up. The next step before we budget this money is to actually set goals for each of these categories. Luckily, YNAB makes this super simple, so we're gonna start with these categories that we know are gonna be the same amount every single month. Simply come over here to like pet insurance, click in it, and then you'll see on the right-hand side where it says create a goal. Now you have a couple options here. Right now, what I care about is this monthly funding goal. So every single month, I need to budget $56 in order to cover the pet insurance. All right, now Netflix, I need to budget $12. The Airstream payment, I'll need to budget $492. For car insurance, I have to budget $223. The phone bill is $218, and campground fees is $750. All right, so you get an idea how that works. Now we want to set goals for our living expenses, things that we don't know, exactly how much it's going to cost, but we can have a goal in mind of how much we want to spend. So for groceries, for instance, Hannah and I typically try to spend around $400 a month on groceries. For cosmetics, we aim to be around $75. So you kind of get the idea how that works. I'll scroll down here and show you as well. So for our fun money, Hannah and I also, we currently each have $30 worth of guilt-free spending money. Now, you also want to do this for your savings goals and your debt repayment goals. So let's say for our sewing machine goal, we're not going really hard after that right now, but we're trying to save maybe $20 a month for that. Kayaks, we're trying to save a little more for because we would like to get those fairly soon. So maybe $100 a month for that. You kind of get the idea now. Basically, you want to set goals for every single thing because that tells you how much you want to spend in that category. And then we can use this information to actually budget the correct amount for those categories. Remember, we haven't actually added any money to these categories just yet. And that's because, like I said earlier, YNAB is different than a lot of other budgeting tools. We're not gonna budget the whole month at once. We're gonna set goals for the whole month at once, but we're not gonna actually budget for the whole month at once yet. Now, I also wanna point out that YNAB's got some other cool goal functionality. So you can actually set goals to have a target balance. So for Christmas shopping, for example, let's say that I want to set a goal to have $500 for Christmas shopping by November or by December. So by December of 2018, I can hit OK, and boom. Now it tells me that I need to budget $100 more to stay on track towards reaching my $500 goal if I want to actually be at 500 by December. And that's because right now we're in August. All right, I'm not going to finish the rest of these goals right now for this example. I think you can do that on your own. So let's keep cruising. You've got your account set up, you got your category set up, you got your goals set up. Now we're finally ready to start actually budgeting this money. So let's scroll back to the top here and look at this inflow to be budgeted. Remember, this is the money that you have available to you, and we need to give every single one of these dollars a job. First and foremost, it's probably easiest to assign the money in your savings account. So we can look over here and see that we've got $500 currently in our emergency fund. And so let's go ahead and move $500 to our emergency category. And if you scroll down, you'll see that now the emergency savings has $500 in it. Now we've also got $200 in savings. So where do I want to put that? Well, let's say that I want to go ahead and do 100 to the kayaks. And that'll hit that monthly goal because I really do want those kayaks. Great, so now we are funded. Now I'll also go ahead and add in maybe $50 to the down payment on a house, and maybe I'll throw in $20 for the sewing machine, and then I'll put the other $30 towards our trips and vacations. All right, so now we've got $2,000 and then we've got $15 in the wallet, and that's how much we've got left in our to be budgeted. So now let's take a look at the bills. Since we're not budgeting for the whole month, we don't have the money to budget for the whole month, we need to think about what bills are going to be due first, and let's make sure we have the money in our account to cover those. So today is August 15th, so I know the very next thing that I'm going to need to budget for is I need to make sure that I've got car insurance money there to cover that. Then I probably want to make sure that I've got enough money for our internet and phone bill because I may not get paid again before that. And then campground fees, I don't know exactly when. Well, I kind of do because obviously I know when I'm traveling. For you with rent, you would know a specific date, but for me, I'm gonna go ahead and just cover about half of that. So I'll put $300, and then on my next paycheck, I'll add it and go ahead and finish off the rest. Now I know I'm gonna get paid again before any of these bills come up, so I'm not gonna worry about those just yet. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to some of the other living expenses. So I know that we're gonna need to buy some groceries this week. Although my goal is $400, I'm not gonna budget all of that yet. I'll budget $200 for that. For cosmetics, remember my goal is $75. I'll go ahead and budget $40 for cosmetics. For household items, my goal is $75, so I'll budget $40 for that as well. I know that I'm gonna have to fill up the truck again before I get paid, so I'll probably go ahead and add in $75 there. It's a diesel. Gas is expensive. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I am not a big fan of cash. Actually, I really can't stand cash because it's hard to track and I just don't like it. So, but unfortunately, I do have to have cash for a few things like the laundromat. So I'm gonna go ahead and budget $15 for the laundromat, and then I'll be sure to use my cash in order to do that. All right, so I now have $844 left in all of this, and I need to start thinking about a few other things. Right now, I'm not gonna put any money towards these long-term things. Well, actually, I will go ahead and budget $100 for Christmas so that I'm good there. I'm gonna hold off on these for now. I'm gonna go ahead and add $50 for unexpected. I'll budget for our spending money. And you can see it kind of does this cool thing where when you do half of it, it fills in half the pie and kind of lets you know quickly where you're at on your funding. All right, so now we're down to $609. Now, I have done a little bit for savings, so that's not bad, but really what I need to be thinking about is beefing up my savings, and then also I need to be thinking about these credit cards over here. So I may go ahead and plan to do $100 for retirement savings, but then I'm gonna use the rest of this money to start worrying about these credit cards. So what do I mean by that? Well, now's a good segue into talking about how YNAB handles credit cards. See, YNAB handles credit cards in what seems to be a kind of a funny way at first, but once you get the hang of it, you realize, no, this is exactly how it works in real life, so of course they handle it this way. So what do I mean? Well, right now, I owe $1,500 on my Visa and $500 on the MasterCard. Now you'll notice that I didn't set up these credit card payment categories. YNAB actually set these up automatically for me. See, credit cards and YNAB have their own category, and you need to budget money for them just like you would any other thing. So, think about this. I have $2,000 in my checking account, but that doesn't mean I can just go spend $2,000, right? Because I've made a definitive statement that I need to use some of this $2,000 for these things, right? $223 for car insurance, $218 for phone and internet, $300 for campground fees. So this money in my checking account, I can't just use it to pay these credit cards off, even though it looks like I could, because I've had to budget it for these other tasks. So how do I know how much of this checking account money I can use to pay off these credit cards? Well, that's where budgeting this money for the credit cards comes into play. So let's say it looks like I've actually got enough money left to go ahead and just pay that MasterCard off. And so if I'm really serious about getting out of debt, I might go ahead and throw all 500 of these at that MasterCard. And now look, I've got a green bubble over here, and that means that I have $500 ready to pay against that MasterCard and pay that off. Now let's say that I want to throw the rest of this $39 against this Visa card. Well, I'll add that there. Now I'm down to zero, so I'm out of money to be budgeted. It's all this money is now accounted for, and I've got $39 that are ready to pay against the Visa card and $500 that are ready to pay against the MasterCard. Now, in an ideal world, obviously, if you listen to me at all, you know that I preach about not using credit cards unless you are paying them off in full diligently every single month. If you're carrying a balance on that credit card, you probably need to cut it up and figure out how to get rid of it, that debt as soon as possible. But if you do have debt on a credit card that you can't pay off in full every single month, the best thing to do is to come over here and try and set a goal, right? So set either a monthly funding goal or a pay off the balance date by a certain date. So let's say that I want to pay off this balance for this card by December of 2018. Well, now it's going to tell me that I need to budget $261 more to stay on track. Now, in a second, when I start explaining how transactions work in YNAB, you'll understand why credit cards are set up this way. It'll make a whole lot more sense to you. So just hang tight for that, and we'll explain credit cards in a little more detail in just a second. The bottom line here that I need you to understand is that what we just did, we said we had $2,000 in checking, we had $15 in our wallet, we took all that money and we put it in these various categories so that now when we go and spend money out of our checking account or we go and spend money on these credit cards, we know where the money is going to come from, and then we're going to know that we can use a certain amount from the checking account to pay off the credit card. Okay, so that brings us to a really good spot to finally start talking about transactions and how do you actually record your spending as it's happening. So you can do this in the YNAB app on your phone, which I love. I love the YNAB app, by the way, or you can use a computer. We're just going to do it on the computer for now. It's pretty simple. Just make sure you're in the right account. So let's say that I wrote a check or I used my debit card, and then you click up here to add a transaction. Put a date on it. So let's say today. The payee, let's say that I got Taco Bell. Let's say I was really, really hungry. So let's say, where does Taco Bell goes? Well, Taco Bell goes into date night eating out for $25. Let's say Hannah and I were super hungry and we spent all $25. So now what you can see, if we go back to our budget and scroll down, you'll notice that under date night spending, we had $25 budgeted and now we have $25 spent. And we have $0 available to spend in that category. So it's pretty easy to understand. You spend money out of your checking account, the balance goes down, and it leaves your budget. So how does the credit cards work? Let's get back and look at that. Well, what happens when you spend on a credit card is a little bit different. So let's look at the Visa, for example. I'm gonna go ahead and pay that phone bill. So the phone bill is $218. I'm paying it on the Visa. So phone bill paid, $218, all right? So now on the Visa card, I have a balance of $1,718. So let's see what happened over here. I now have no money available, which makes sense. It took it away because I spent it, and it shows that I spent $218. But if you notice, my checking account balance is the same. Well, of course, because I spent it on the Visa card. So where did this money go? Well, where it went is up here. So now, remember, just 2 seconds ago, we had $39 available to pay against the Visa card. Now, we have $257 available to pay against the Visa card. Why does this work? Well, this works because think about it. We said we had $2,000 in the checking account. That was our to be budgeted. We said we were gonna take $218 and mark it for our phone bill. When we spent the money on the Visa, the money hasn't left our checking account yet. So we can't just make it leave the checking account because that hasn't happened in real life. In real life, Visa knows that we owe them $218. So YNAB, being its clever YNAB self, puts that money up here in the credit card payment section so that when we're ready, we can send $218 from our checking to the Visa card and pay it off. So now let's say that later today, I log into my Visa card account and I want to pay off that $218 bill. So I'm gonna pay off the phone bill. I'm gonna transfer money from checking to the Visa. And now the checking account does go down. The Visa card goes back to $1,500 and the Visa card payment goes back to $39 available. So that is a quick and dirty overview of how credit cards work in YNAB. That was probably a little fast, a little confusing. If you want, put a comment down in the section below. And if you would like, I will make a more detailed video on the way credit cards work in YNAB. They're probably the most confusing aspect of the program, but I did want to at least quickly go over how they work. Okay, so moving on from credit cards, the next thing we want to look at is what happens when you overspend. Like, is there a problem when you actually spend more money in a category than what you have available to you? Well, yes, there is. Let's look at the car insurance, for example. So car insurance, we said $223. That's what we've budgeted. $223. Let's say that I spent $250. Now what's going to happen is when I come over here to the budget, it's going to show a negative $27. Now, here's one thing you need to understand about YNAB's color system. You've also noticed I haven't mentioned that until just now, and that's because now is when it matters the most. YNAB has 3 colors. Green. Green means that you're good. Either the category is fully funded to your goal that you wanted, the category still has money left over that you can freely spend, it means you're good. Yellow means, hey, there's something you need to pay attention to here. So, for instance here, yellow just simply means, hey, you're $56 short of your goal, so you need to add $56. If you are red, red means overspending. This means bad, but red means specifically overspending in a cash equivalent account. So either your wallet or a checking account or a savings account. It means literally that account is $27 less than what you planned for. So you need to fix that ASAP. All right, so what can we do? Well, let's do this. Here's the cool thing. This is where the power of YNAB can really start coming into play. I can easily cover this spending by just going gas, and boom. YNAB automatically added my budget to $250 here so that it went to 0, and it took $27 out of my gas category. Okay, let's look at one more overspending example that you need to understand when it comes to credit cards. Let's say that I go to the store and I overspend on groceries, all right? But I do it on a credit card, not out of the checking account. All of a sudden now, if I go to groceries, you'll see that it has this little emblem here with an exclamation point and a credit card, and it's negative $50. What that means is I've overspent on a credit card. Now, the reason it's yellow is because, again, it hasn't left my checking account. My actual money that is in my name is technically the exact same. I haven't overspent. But it does mean that when the credit card bill is due, I'm not going to have budgeted enough money to cover that expense. So I still need to cover it from somewhere else. So let's say that I want to cover this money from, let's say maybe I want to cover it from campground fees. Well, I can easily do that just by doing it that way. So that's another example. Overspending in a checking or savings, it's going to be a big red. Overspending on a credit card, it's going to be a yellow. This is the power of YNAB. YNAB understands that unlike physical envelopes where you've got to physically take money out of one envelope and put it in another one when you want to change it, YNAB makes it super simple to switch money from category to category, whether you want to add money to a category to spend more, or whether you've overspent money and you need to cover it with another category. Okay, now that really was a lot. We covered a ton right there. I hope that you're still with me. I hope you're still hanging in there. I've just got one more major point to hit on that you really need to understand to get the most out of YNAB. So stick with me for just a little bit longer. The next feature is extremely important, and I think you're really going to like what you see. It's going to help you stop living that paycheck to paycheck lifestyle. This is the power of YNAB right here. It actually helps you get a handle on your money, get ahead of your money so that you can do what you want to be doing. So let's go ahead and check that feature out. All right, so let's fast forward a little bit. Let's say that you get to the end of the month and you've still got money left over in a category. For instance, let's say we've still got $50 left in our date night eating out category. Well, we've got a couple options here. We could take that money and we could transfer it to pay off some debt, maybe our credit card. We could take that money, we could transfer it to savings and try and save some more money and get ahead. Or we can just leave that money there and let it roll over to the next month. This here is what's so cool about YNAB. If you don't spend the money this month, it will automatically roll over and stay in that category for next month. So you can see we're starting off the month, date night eating out, with $50 in the bank. Okay, now let's look at one more example when it comes to month to month. Let's go ahead and pay myself for the rest of the month. All right, so I had a paycheck come in that was $2,000. So you'll see here now we've got $2,000 that's to be budgeted. So now we can fully fund all of this stuff. All right, so now we can see that I got paid $2,000 and I am fully funded for the rest of the month, and I've still got $630 left over. I've already budgeted for the whole month. Maybe it's still August 15th, but I've gotten paid enough to where I'm budgeted. I'm good. I know that this is enough money for me to get through the rest of the month. What do I do with this $630? Well, now what I want to do is let's go ahead and start budgeting for the next month. Let's go into September and let's get ahead. So I know I'm going to have to make an Airstream payment of $492. I know that I'm going to have pet insurance of $56, Netflix of $12, and let's just go ahead and take the rest of that and put it on gas. So now I have not only fully budgeted all of August, I've already started budgeting ahead into September. Okay, why does this matter? Why do you care? Well, this is how you stop living paycheck to paycheck. When you start doing this, you start getting ahead. So that now, all of a sudden, my first paycheck in September, I've actually already covered a good bit of September expenses with August money. And so then if I can continually get ahead and do this over the course of a few months or even a year, eventually I can get to where I'm covering all of next month's expenses with this month's money. And I'm spending last month's money this month. This is how you break that paycheck to paycheck cycle. Now, YNAB has a concept called aging your money. Essentially, all it means is exactly what I just said. Aging your money is saying, look, we had money come in on Friday, and if all of a sudden you spend that money by Thursday, then that money is only 6 days old. That's not very old. If you can do what I said, which is work to where you are getting a month ahead, then all of a sudden your money is 30 days old. And so your long-term goal should be to try and get your money to the age of 30. Now, right when you start an account, YNAB doesn't have enough data to age your money, but when you do, it'll appear in this little corner right here. This here is why YNAB is so daggone powerful. It helps you break that paycheck to paycheck cycle and get on living your life and doing what you want to be doing. Now, if you liked this video and found it helpful, please hit that like button and leave a comment down below and tell me what was the most helpful thing that you learned from this tutorial. If you didn't learn as much as you were hoping and you still have questions, please leave those questions down there below as well. I promise I will answer them all. Also, I will have my affiliate link in the description below if you would like to check out a 30-day free trial from YNAB. It'll give you a free month. It'll also give me a free month. If you're not into the affiliate link thing, that's fine. Just go to YNAB.com and you can grab a free trial that way as well. Sure, I would love if you use my affiliate link, but ultimately I care much more about you trying the software and getting ahead with your money and really getting a handle on it than I do about me saving a couple bucks. As always, please subscribe to this channel if you like this video and want to see more like it. And remember, I can teach you how to budget. I can teach you how to get ahead with your money and map it out, but I can't make you do it. The choice is yours. I'll see y'all next time.